Have you ever loved someone so deeply that you carried storms on your shoulders just so they could stand in the sunshine? The rain was heavy that afternoon, pouring down like the sky itself was breaking, and I drove my old car through the blur of water and gray streets, hands clenched on the steering wheel, eyes heavy from too many nights without rest. I had been pushing through shifts stacked, one on another, chasing enough money just to keep food in the fridge and the lights flickering a little longer, and every time I thought maybe life would ease its grip, another storm rolled in. My phone buzzed on the seat beside me, the glow of the screen flashing through the fogged window, but I ignored it. Messages had stopped carrying kindness. They were weight now, complaints, debts, reminders of failure, demands I could not meet. I didn't need more storms inside this car. When I finally pulled into the daycare parking lot, cracked asphalt shining with puddles, my chest sank. I knew what waited inside my daughter, my little girl. She would run to me with arms stretched wide, her smile pure as sunlight, her love unshaken by the chaos she could not see. And I, drowning as I was, would need to hold her and pretend I was strong, pretend that her whole world was safe in my arms. Inside, the air smelled of crayons and disinfectant. Children's laughter and cries bounced against walls painted with colors brighter than my days. I spotted her in the corner, small hands gripping markers, face bent toward the paper with focus that made the rest of the room disappear. She was building her escape with lines and colors, and when she lifted her head and saw me, her entire face lit up. She ran into my arms and held on tight as if I was the universe itself. And in that moment, I believed maybe I was. But she didn't know. She didn't see the bills unopened on the counter, the phone calls I silenced, the lies I told about why we couldn't eat out or why the lights dimmed. She didn't know the truth I carried. Her mother had promised to help. She had promised 1,000 things, but promises don't feed a child. Promises don't stop the sound of hunger in the middle of the night. Addiction had devoured her promises, gambling away not only her money, but her daughter's future. I had tried to believe she would change. I forgave her again and again, held on to the idea of family even as the ground beneath me broke apart. But lies spread like weeds, and they grew fast. One night the truth burned in my hands. Receipts hidden in her purse, slips from casinos while she had sworn she was buying groceries. I held them like fire, and when I showed her, her eyes were cold, her voice sharp. She shrugged. "Money comes and goes," she said. But when I looked at the little shoes by the door, I knew it wasn't just money leaving us. It was childhood. It was trust. It was the fragile safety we had left. I told her it was over. She laughed. She told me I was weak, that I couldn't survive without her. But the truth burned clear in me then. We could never survive with her. The days that followed blurred. Lawyers, meetings, papers filled with words I barely understood. And the hardest part, telling a child why her mother would not be coming home. My daughter cried into her pillow night after night, and I sat outside her door, breaking apart in silence. How do you explain betrayal to a child whose heart is pure? How do you soften truth that cuts so deep? I tried. I failed. But slowly she leaned on me and I leaned on her, and brick by fragile brick we began to rebuild. Our apartment was small, gray, cold, but we filled it with warmth. We planted flowers in pots outside the door, bright spots of color against the cracked concrete. We cooked simple meals together, laughing at pancakes burned black on the pan. We covered the walls with her drawings, paper after paper, color after color, until the gray walls looked alive. And in those moments, I realized something I had never believed before. Losing someone who destroys you is not loss. It is freedom. The storms didn't disappear, but I learned to stand in them. And she, my daughter, grew stronger too. One evening, as the sun bled orange into the sky, she held my hand and whispered, "I think Mommy loves the games more than me." Her voice was soft, steady, but heavy with truth a child should never carry. It shattered something in me, but I knelt down, looked into her eyes, and told her she was more precious than anything in this world. I told her her mother's choices could never define her worth. And from that night forward, she stopped reaching for love that wasn't given. She chose herself. She chose me. We began to find joy again in the smallest places. Her laughter, her stories, her art that spilled colors into every corner. She drew families, always two figures holding hands beneath bright skies. I asked her once why only two. She said because that's enough. And she was right. We were enough. When her school held an art showcase, I walked into the gym buzzing with children's voices and bright displays, and there in the center was her painting. A house with flowers, a tall figure, a small figure, hand in hand beneath a sky full of stars. The teacher told me she called it her safe place, her real home. Tears filled my eyes, but I swallowed them because I wanted her to see only pride when she looked at me. Later that night, we celebrated with ice cream, a small luxury, sweet dripping down her hand as she laughed. And I realized that even in brokenness, life could be sweet. Sometimes her mother tried to reach out, messages full of apologies, promises, requests for money. But I had learned. Every apology was a mask for the next betrayal. Every promise another step into the cycle. Most of the time, I ignored them. Until one evening she appeared at the door. Her eyes were tired, her hands shaking. She said she had changed. She said she wanted to see her daughter. I let her in, because children deserve truth, not silence. But it took only minutes before she asked for money, before second chances became currency. My daughter stood behind me, silent, holding onto my shirt. And in that silence, I heard her decision. She didn't run to her mother. She didn't beg. She had seen enough. I asked her mother to leave. My voice was steady, firm. She screamed, accused, said I was poisoning my daughter against her. But the truth was, she had done that herself. When the door shut, the air in our apartment felt lighter. My daughter whispered, "Thank you, Daddy." And those words were more powerful than any storm. Years passed, slow at first, then faster, each day shaped by struggle and survival, but also by love that refused to break. I worked nights, weekends, every extra shift I could find. Exhaustion became my shadow, but I wore it like armor because every morning her smile waited for me, and that smile gave me strength no rest could match. We learned to create joy in small ways, to carve out moments of light from the stone of hardship. We built forts from blankets, danced to songs from a broken radio, painted dreams across scraps of paper. Each memory became a brick in the home we were rebuilding, a home not made of walls or furniture, but of trust and laughter and safety. My daughter carried wisdom beyond her years, the kind of knowing that only comes from surviving storms. Sometimes she would look at me with eyes too old for her age and ask if we were really okay, if we would be all right. And I could answer truthfully now, yes, we were okay, because even if the world was heavy, we were holding it together, and together was enough. There were still nights I lay awake, anger curling in my chest when I thought of the promises her mother had shattered, of the trust she had gambled away piece by piece. But more often than anger, I felt gratitude. Strange as it was, her absence had given us space to grow, to heal, to find strength we never would have discovered otherwise. Through her betrayal, I discovered my resilience. Through her absence, my daughter discovered her light. Together, we found freedom in places we didn't know existed. And slowly, the storms that once threatened to drown us became lessons in endurance, shaping us but no longer defining us. When we finally moved out of that small apartment into a modest house, nothing grand but ours, the look on my daughter's face told me everything. We planted flowers in the backyard, her hands digging into the dirt with laughter as if she were planting a future. We cooked meals in a kitchen that no longer echoed with unpaid bills, but with music and jokes. The walls we painted ourselves, bright and uneven, covered with her art. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't polished, but it was ours. And in that house, life felt alive again. My daughter grew older, her drawings evolving into paintings full of light and meaning. She told me she wanted to be an artist, to show the world colors it had never seen. I encouraged her every step of the way because her dreams were more valuable than any paycheck, and I knew her gift came from the strength she had grown from pain. At times she doubted herself, staring at her work with furrowed brows, whispering that maybe she wasn't good enough. And each time I reminded her of the truth. She was already more than enough, not because of what she created, but because of who she was. She believed me because she had seen me fight for her, and in return, she gave me hope that kept me moving forward. Her mother reached out again over the years, sometimes with messages of regret, sometimes with pleas for money, sometimes with promises of change. But I knew the pattern too well. Promises had become poison, words empty of weight. Each message I ignored became a boundary, a line drawn not in anger but in protection. For a while, I wondered if I was cruel, denying my daughter the chance to reconcile. But then I saw the way she no longer flinched when her mother's name was spoken. I saw the way she no longer reached for something that hurt her. She had chosen her own peace. She had chosen our life. And that was enough. The years rolled on until the day of her high school graduation. I sat in the crowded auditorium, surrounded by families clapping and cheering, and my eyes never left the stage as she walked across, cap tilted, gown swaying, smile wide. My heart swelled with pride and memory. I saw not only the young woman she had become, but the little girl she once was, drawing pictures of two figures holding hands beneath bright skies. She was stronger than every storm we had weathered, brighter than every shadow we had left behind. And when she took that diploma in her hand, I felt a kind of victory that no words could capture. After the ceremony, she ran to me, arms tight around my shoulders, and whispered, "We made it, Daddy. We made it." And she was right. Against every obstacle, against betrayal, against fear, we had made it together. Later that night, we sat in the backyard of the house we had built with struggle and love, the sky above scattered with stars. She leaned her head on my shoulder and asked me softly, "Daddy, do you think we will always be enough?" I looked at her, this young woman who had carried so much and still glowed with strength, and I smiled. "We are more than enough," I told her. "We are everything. The storms of the past shaped us, but they did not define us. We defined ourselves with every choice to stand instead of collapse, with every laugh that rose from brokenness, with every moment of love stronger than loss. Our life was not perfect, but it was real, and it was ours. And that was everything. This story is not only mine, it belongs to every parent who has fought to protect their child, to every child who has endured what they never should have faced, to every person who has been betrayed but chose to keep building anyway. If you have ever felt broken, if you have ever felt abandoned, hear this. You are not defined by the people who walked away or by the promises that turned to lies. You are defined by the love you choose to give, by the resilience you refuse to surrender, by the hope you still carry even in darkness. So let this story remind you of what you already know deep down. You are enough. You are more than enough. And the storms in your life, no matter how fierce, cannot take away the light that burns inside you. Share this truth with someone who needs it, someone who is fighting their own storm, because sometimes the reminder that we are enough is the beginning of freedom.